Buongiorno, councillors. Carol?
Just going to plug myself in, Your Worship.
Councillors, I'm just, before we start, I'm going to do a word of prayer, but I'm just going to wait for Councillor Peters to finish plugging herself in.
Sorry.
That's okay. Again, as I said many times, being here if you want to, it's up to you. But I'm going to have a word of prayer at the start of it. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for the day. Thank you, Lord, for the sunshine and the staff to be able to do their job as part of the emergency resident relief teams. Lord, look after us now as we go through our decision-making processes and help us all be able to focus what's best for the district and for your people. In your most precious and loving name. Amen.
Amen.
Now, councillors, before we start, I'm wondering if you don't mind standing for a moment's silence, basically for those who had actually passed away during the cyclone. This is our first official meeting. And also at the same time, we have a Civic Honours awardee who passed away last week as well, Murdoch Ross. And Ben Pittman as well, yes.
Yeah.
So a moment's silence, please. Thank you, councillors. Appreciate that. We have truly gone through an interesting couple of weeks, and I don't think anyone would say otherwise. Members of the public, thank you for coming in. Staff, good to see you. And as a reminder, all councillors, again, cell phones off or in silent mode as we are live streaming for the public. Our first agenda item is the public forum. Oh, so do we have any declarations of interest for any of the items? No? No apologies? Okay, public forum. Now, we had one person pull out this morning, so Colin, as per yesterday, would you like to take the seat? Now, Colin, as per yesterday, you had 5 minutes. You've got 5 minutes again today. And again, now some councillors afterwards to ask questions if they want.
Thank you very much. It's not becoming a habit. This is the last time I'll ever be speaking. Your Worship, councillors and staff, I've come here to talk about the Whangarei Bay Wharf. I don't profess to be an expert, but I do have a master's degree in engineering, so I have some understanding of it. This has been a long saga and a developing saga over quite a long time, but we believe we've come up with a win-win solution for the councillors and for the local people. About a year ago, staff quite rightly decided to assess the safety of pedestrians fishing on the wharf, and they asked Grit Engineering to do that assessment. Initially, their report said, and I quote, "This wharf should not be used for heavy vessel mooring or vehicular traffic, which it was built for," and we agree with that. "As it was originally constructed robustly, it is unlikely to fail currently with pedestrian-only traffic." That was their initial report. However, since then, they've written another report and recommended that it be closed to the public. But they did have provisos of that. One said, and I quote, "Please note our structural analysis is based on engineering theory only." So they didn't do any practical tests, but they did lots of calculations. And came up with the statement, "There is a lack of sufficient evidence to prove the wharf is safe for public use." I suggest also there is sufficient evidence to suggest that it's safe. So what happened is they erred on caution, said let's close it. We're not contesting that. Despite the lack of evidence, we accept that the deck itself is potentially a risk. and we should take that seriously, but not the beams and the other structure. They are very robust. Sadly, there was a promise of public consultation, and the local people hoped that there was going to be a meeting to discuss this, but absolutely no consultation has taken place other than some emails. Despite this, the original idea was to demolish the wharf and replace it with a gangway and pontoon. Unfortunately, we haven't had a chance to discuss that. We hope the engineers and staff would meet us in Parrot Bay, but that hasn't taken place despite our requests. However, recently I consulted James Blackburn. He's the chief engineer of Hawthorne Geddes. Now, Hawthorne Geddes is one of the very top engineering outfits in Whangarei. And I sought his opinion. We discussed it at length. He strongly believes that they can design a timber overlay which would guarantee pedestrian safety. And if they designed it, they would take the responsibility of guaranteeing the safety. It wouldn't be on council or staff to do that, which it is at present. As far as I can find out, and I've asked, no staff member has done any cost estimates of demolition. In other words, if you go ahead and demolish the decision to demolish it, council will be writing a blank cheque, which is not the usual method of operating. Hawthorne Geddes has made a rough estimate of demolition. And I'm talking about complete demolition. We can't possibly knock a couple of bits out and leave it as an eyesore, a risk. So it would have to be complete demolition. This is estimated to be between $300,000 and $400,000 or more. You're not going to get a quote for it because it's such a difficult job, there would be overruns. So it's an expensive operation. So where to now? So we believe that a professionally designed overlay to take away the risk of the platform itself would cost far less than demolition. And of course, it wouldn't only be demolition, it would be building a new gangway and pontoon. Vaguely, we're thinking it would cost half the demolition cost. And it would be there for a long time. It wouldn't be there for 100 years. This one's been here in 98, but I think it would be a substantial time. So we do agree that, as I say, the decking is not robust, but the beams, horizontal beams are, and one of the estimates is that it's got still 55% of the strength that it did have when loaded trucks were on. I know some big people in Whangarei, but that's still quite helpful. We believe that our proposal is 100% safe, costs far less than demolition. So what would we like? We would like council to go ahead and ask Hawthorne Geddes to sit down with Hawthorne Geddes and see whether their proposal has any merit. Maybe you're not allowed to simply give the job of designing to them because you might have to go out for other quotes, but certainly they would be an excellent firm to do that. To get them to do it, to put the overlay on, to have people fishing again, because if we took the alternative of demolition, realistically, it's going to be 1, 2, 3 years without anything. Nobody is going to knock it down and build it the next day. So please, we would like your support to actively explore this other possibility. And if we do that, we're not saying it's a fait accompli, but we believe that this is the solution, and it would be a win-win for council, less expensive, and the local people who fish there would be absolutely delighted. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Any questions from the councillors? Councillor Cooper.
Thank you for your presentation, Colin. It's lovely to have an intellectual equal in the room. I just wondered, you make it sound like you, on one hand you're speaking alone, but you make it sound like you represent a group. What sort of do you represent a group, and if so, is it a formal group?
We've been in Whangarei for 26 years. Our house actually looks at the wharf all the time, and we've spoken to quite a lot of people that fish there, and there are quite a few other people in the community who support this very strongly. One of them happens to be a person called our neighbour, Greg Innes.
I know,
yes.
But you're not part of any ratepayers group or any formal group?
We have the support of the Whangarei Heads Ratepayers Association, who've written a letter of support. Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Olsen.
It's not a question, it's really a comment.
Councillor Olsen, this is just a question time.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I'll leave it.
That's okay. Colin, just my question on this. You said that Hawthorne Guineas had come up with an overlay that will cost $200,000.
No, that's a wild estimate.
That's a wild estimate.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, of course. And all of them are wild estimates because apparently nobody has asked for any costing of anything as yet.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Cool. No other questions? Thank you very much, Colin.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Deborah.
Thank you. Tina Koto, Thank you, Your Worship, councillors and council staff for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I'm Dr. Deborah Jowett. I've lived on Wharf Road, Whangarei Bay for just over 20 years now. Our driveway's at the back of the small parking area behind Whangarei Bay Wharf, and it's given me ample opportunity to experience how important this amenity is to our community and also the wider Whangarei community, which frequently use the wharf. Although I retired recently, my work has been for many years in patient safety, so I'm familiar with the concepts of risk assessment and mitigation. Prior to the wharf being closed in August last year, it was used regularly by recreational fishermen, gathering kaimoana, and this often included families and children. It's a great place to fish. The far end of the wharf, you can fish most times of the tide, and there are plentiful mullet and kawai. And importantly, the amenity was free. There's no charge to get out there and enjoy it with your family. And we certainly saw lots of kids learning to fish on school holidays, weekends, and it's another thing about it is that you don't need a boat to fish. There's lots of people in Whangarei who own boats, but there are lots who don't. And the wharf really gave those people a way of filling that gap. Something you might not know about the wharf is that the number of people who use it is limited by the very small parking space around it. The maximum number of cars that I've seen, even during holiday periods, is around 8. There's just not room for more. Mostly it's 1 or 2 cars. There's a very solid concrete bollard in the centre of the entryway which prevents vehicles from going on it. And it's been there for a long time. I've never seen a vehicle as much as attempt to get onto the wharf. It's been pedestrian use only. Also, if you haven't been down it, Wharf Road is a very narrow, for the most part, narrow, one-way, unsealed road. Thanks to council, there's now a sign at the beginning of the one-way section warning RVs and buses not to go to the wharf because there's just not space to turn around with. In August 2022, when the wharf was closed, the initial sign erected by council said that its, quote, Parks and Recreation Department will be working with the community and exploring replacement options. we, the community, and the wider community, anticipated that that meant a face-to-face community meeting. We've got 4 community halls in our area, and we were disappointed that no consultation took place, and in fact, in the week before Christmas, we were advised by a member of council staff that demolition of the first 2 sections of the wharf was planned for early January 2023. However, as it happened, the rapidly deteriorating condition of Wharf Road due to weather, we've had 3 significant slips, did not allow transport of a suitable crane to undertake this work. The council website now says, and I quote, "When an asset gets to this point, i.e. is deemed unsafe, we investigate all options. These include the pros and cons, costs and benefits to the community of restoration, demolition, replacement or demolition. We will consult with the community in 2023 to work together on either a replacement or other suitable option." Unquote. I sincerely hope that Council will give the proposals put forward by Colin Edwards due consideration. Whangarei Bay Wharf is too important to us in the wider community to do otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate that. Do we have any questions? Yes, Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Deborah. Do you think it advisable for the number of car parks to be increased while we're doing this, or do you think that that's a suitable number?
The geography would prohibit any further enlargement of the issues.
But you think that, of course, that the road should be improved?
It's a necessity because the sewer line to Whangarei Heads runs under it, so it needs to be kept in good condition, as well as allowing us to get home, of course.
Any other questions? Deborah, I just have one question, which is, Colin mentioned before that his group was very happy that in fact there would be no vehicles on the wharf. Are you in the same view? That you prefer no vehicles on the wharf?
I prefer them.
Yeah, would you prefer no vehicles on the wharf as well?
Oh, yeah, I would, I've never seen a vehicle on the wharf and I wouldn't consider it a safe option at all.
Appreciate it, thank you. No other questions? No? Thank you, Deborah, for coming in. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Okay, councillors, we're going to move on to item 5.1, which is the previous minutes, including the confidential. Thank you again, guys. Do I have a mover? Councillor Peters, and a seconder? Councillor Reid. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you very much. Carried. We now move on to item 5.2, which is on page 19 for those in the digital world and 16 for those in the paper world. Do I have a mover for the...
I'll move subject to an amendment, please.
Subject
On item 4.3, your Kara loan agreement update.
Yes.
I'd like this to be added, please. Subject to it being recorded in reference to item 4.3, a Kara Marina Management Loan Agreement, the Council has declared an interest as the Council appointee of the trustees to the Whangarei Marina Trust, and that the Council House withdrew from the discussion and voting on item 4.3, except to provide a synopsis of the history of the town based in the trust. I'd like that included, please.
And Councillor Peters looks like she's seconding that with you.
Including the amendment?
Including the amendment, yes. It's been moved, it's been seconded. Is there any discussion?
I support that. I remember Councillor Hobbs doing that.
Okay, so there's no discussion on that. All in favour? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. Item 6.1, which is on page 22 in the paper, 25 in the digital world. Councillor Benny, I believe you would like to move this. now?
Yes.
Yep.
Just wait for a second, that's all.
Councillor Reid, second. There you go.
Thank you. No, 1 minute. So, just briefly, the previous council.
You're going to say what the motion is for the camera?
Oh, okay. Well, do you want me to read it out?
Yes, please.
Okay, the recommendation is that the council approve that the Community Development Committee terms of reference be updated to include the Northland Event Centre Trust 2021, NECT 2021, making the NECT 2021 accountable to that committee, Event Centre Trust 2021, NECT 2021. A little bit of repeating there, but that's okay. So a little bit of past history on that. In the previous council, in the previous term, set up this Northland Event Centre Trust in 2021 with a commercial slant to try and rectify some of the grants that we were giving them to make it a commercial entity. It makes sense that it needs to be reported back to council. It is a council controlled organisation, a CCO, and it needs to be reported back to this council in some manner, and the obvious place for this is in the Community Development Committee.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Peters.
I think I agree with Councillor Benny, and I think it's important too because some of the groups that use the stadium may need support to be able to afford the fees, and that will come through the community development pathway. So this move suggested is actually a really logical one and helpful for both us and the event centre.
Yes. Doesn't appear to be anyone else wanting to make any comment. Councillors, as you can see, it has been moved and seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you, Victoria, for stepping over there just in case there was a question. Item 6.2, approve parts of the Whangarei District Plan operative in part. Do I have a Councillor Cooper, would you like to move that?
Yes, thank you.
And Councillor Harding would like to second it. Councillor Cooper, would you like to read out the motion, please?
Thank you. The motion is that Council 1 approves amendments to district plan resulting from the resolution of appeals ENV-2020-Auckland 00131 and ENV-2020, which I believe to be 2020, Auckland 0000132, plan change 109 transport PC 109. I bet you're pleased you heard that. Number 2, approves the affixing of the council seal to those parts of the district plan which are to be amended as attached. Number 3, notes that a public notice will be notified in the local newspaper and on the council's website indicating that amendments have been made to the district plan. The second, you'd like me to speak to that, Mr. Chairman? The amendment to a district plan is actually quite a serious thing, and as a result of quite a lot of process. And I was wondering if we do have a staff member who would like to talk through for the sake of those members who may not have been here when this initiated the last iteration of council. I think it would be good for us to all hear that. Thank you.
Good morning, kia ora koutou, ko Ragoing Te Koingoa. I'm on the district plan team, and yeah, thank you for that. And I guess to give a bit of an overview, so the urban and services plan changes were a package of plan changes to about half of the district plan provisions, looking at rezoning all of the urban areas, looking at district-wide provisions around transport, 3 waters, quite a few chapters of the district plan. So it was notified a few years ago, and now it's gone through the full Schedule 1 plan change process of notification, submissions, hearings, appeals, mediation, and with this one, environment court consent orders. So it's now essentially completed that whole plan change process, and this is kind of the final step in the process required by the RMA to formally approve the plan change and issue the public notice that the plan change has been approved, and those changes will be incorporated into the district plan at a set date.
Now, for Mr. Chairman, slight departure from normal procedure, I'd like to acknowledge Robert coming back to us. Welcome back, Robert. You left us a young man and you've come back and you still look young, but very knowledgeable, and we're very pleased to have you back at the council. Thank you. That's all, I think, Your Worship.
Is there any questions, any discussion? No. Robert, looks like you've been let off the hook. As the motion has been moved and seconded, and there doesn't seem to be any discussion on this, all those in favour? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Councillors, we're now just going to move on to item 6.3, which is removal of Gazette Notice Point Parahaka Scenic Reserve. Parahaka Scenic Reserve. Do I have a mover for this item? Go on, Councillor Benny.
Yeah,
And Councillor Cogle second.
okay, the recommendation is that the council, in accordance with section 6 in brackets 3 Reserves Act 1977, amend Gazette Notice 2008 page 1645 by deleting the land secondly described in the second schedule to that notice and replacing it with the land described as area description 11.1177 hectares, part Parahaki Native Reserve, record of title NA6C-357.
As it has been moved in second, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, just this is an administrative thing that just we've got to go through. There's some issues with it originally, so it's, as I say, it's just an administrative process to go through.
Councillor Olsen.
I would like to declare an interest in this. Okay, so, yeah.
Is that a conflict or just an interest?
It's just an interest.
Thank you very much, Councillor Olsen. Okay, Councillor Hobbs.
It's just a bit of procedure, madam. On page 47, it's got a title here that says a native reserve, Mount Parahaki Native Reserve, and on the title it's actually got a Parahaki Maori Reserve. So can that be looked at while we're tidying up, please? Make sure you actually got the right titles on the title.
I'm seeing a nod from our CE that will be tidied up. And Councillor Hobbs, you know, this is all part of the whole trying to tidy things up. When you read through the agenda there, councillors, you would have seen that it was something which was a bit of communication or written down wrong, and it's been highlighted as the wrong place, so it really is just tidying it up. So I've been given the reassurance from the CE that he will continue making sure that it gets tidied up. Councillors, as it's been moved and seconded, all those in favour? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Item 6.4, removal of public tree from Devon Reserve. I will move that since I'm not seeing anyone's hands jumping up there quickly. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Hoss, you have a second? No. Oh. Almost Councillor Reid. The Council pursuant in section 42 of the Reserve Act 1977 approves the removal of Norfolk Island pine tree from Devon Street Scenic Reserve. Councillors, this is, as you've read it, I'm not a person who loves to take down trees just for the purpose of doing it. It's actually for a reason here, and this is all about trying to make things safer for our community and the process that we've had to go through. As most councillors are well aware, the storms that we have had in this last 2 weeks have ripped some trees out which I never thought would ever be ripped out, and have left some trees which I never thought would have been left. It is really quite fascinating how the storm has actually hit, and it's, this is just part of that process of tidying things up. Councillor O'Connor.
I have a few questions, please. With the recent storm that has come past, has this tree sustained any damage? Or has it actually survived this storm?
Through the chair, yes, the tree has survived the storm. but the landowner is entitled to remove the roots on his property that are causing damage to his building. When that happens, the tree will be unsafe. That's what's anchoring the tree.
That's fine.
I have a few questions anyway. In regards to what you just mentioned there about tree root removal on the private property, as it is a public tree, and we have within our public tree policy, where is it? Sorry. Tree damage. Damage that occurs to public trees, willful damage during construction may incur a warning, fine, or prosecution. How does that relate in this particular situation? Because if they do remove it, whilst it is on their private land, this is part of a public tree, and that's the thing that kind of gets me. How can we not do that if it's in this situation?
Through the chair, it's no longer a public tree when it's in the private land. Public trees on public land, so it's crossing into private property, and the property owner has rights under different legislation that they can deal with what's on their side of the fence. They're not doing that without talking to us, so we've been meeting with them, seeing what we can do. We think the tree is so large and so close to their boundary, it's just now in the wrong place. We'd like to remove that risk for his property and our, the results of that happening. This is only council as the landowner making the decision. I don't know whether a resource consent will be granted to do it. That's the next step, when they weigh up all those other parts of the district plan that they need to consider.
One more question, and I'd like to make a statement. In regards to the fact that this house was built somewhere around 1998 area, borderline, and this tree was 50 years old and substantially large already as it was, do we have anything in place for people that are building on land in those type of situations that will in the future be impacted as this tree is now impacting? Do we have anything in place to stop people doing that or guide them to not do it and them have to deal with the situation if it grows to 150 years old, which this tree can?
Through the chair, I'm aware of one example that is just like that. A large Norfolk pine was on the site. Somebody wanted to redevelop the site. The resource consent conditions protect that tree. They required the developer to put impervious blocks around the tree and to maintain the tree. So we can protect the tree, so it's not a given that redevelopment of a site means a tree can go. So you can protect it. In this case, those conditions are not on the private property.
That's what I'm asking. Sorry, that's what I'm asking though. If it's in the public space and somebody wants to develop a house next to that, whilst it's not on their property, which this one may have been in that space, do we have anything in that place?
Yes. Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I'd just like to speak to this. It's disappointing that this has to come up. It's disappointing that somebody has decided to build a house right next to a substantial tree that would have been already huge at this point in time. There's a bush not a stone's throw from this tree that is subject to all these other instability and tree growth and so many other issues that who knows if that's going to cause any more issues to the stormwater or whatever as well. If we stop allowing trees to be able to get to their full age and stuff and longevity, we won't have any more old growth in these trees. We've already seen the devastation down south with all these landslips on cleared land, on farmland and whatnot. And this is a different situation, but this is just a statement piece for it. It also highlights the need for ensuring that if a tree is going to get as substantially sized as this one is, that it's not planted in these type of locations in the first place, and we actually think about it like in appropriate spaces. it's disappointing to have to do this, and I don't want to have to do this with the public health of the safety of people. I absolutely highly regard and support. It hurts me to have to do this. I don't want to have to do this. And there are people out there who've been fighting for the trees for such a long time, and it's really degraded their faith in the system for actually getting anything done. Because nature is nature, and as much as we say, here's a line of property, we only last 80 to 100 years old ourselves, and it keeps on going on. Trees last, this one could potentially live to 150 years old, let alone 2,000 for some Whangarei trees and whatnot. We're just here for a brief time, yet these things are here for a much longer time. Thank you.
Councillor Gillight.
Thank you, Worship. I was reading this, and it's quite interesting because I know that we had an issue. Councillor Betty and I were working on Brentwood Ave, and I have to sort of look at this and think, this seems such an easy avenue for this resident, and the Brentwood Ave residents should have maybe just said, well, we're just going to cut our roots down, and then you can deal with it. So I'm sort of a little bit like, this doesn't seem fair to me, and I'm talking on behalf of the residents of Brentwood Ave, at the absolute drama that they had to go through. And then this resident, and I'm not about cutting trees and everything, but this resident just seems to be, now it's on an agenda and away we go. So I just want to express my, it doesn't sit well with me. So I just feel like there's, I don't know if anything's sort of going on, but that's all I just sort of wanted to sort of explain. I just sort of feel like this has just kind of been sort of whipped in there, and Brentwood Ave have had to struggle, and they have definitely had their lifting pavers and their fences and everything sort of destroyed. So I don't know if there's anything you can sort of say about that, Sue, or whether this is a different situation.
Yes, through the chair, Brentwood Ave residents could trim the tree roots, and were quite entitled to, and it wouldn't have meant the tree lost stability and fell over. This is a much larger tree that is almost inside the property. It is so large, and the roots that would be trimmed are big roots that would cause instability of the tree and would potentially fall over.
Another question. Would the tree, given the size that he chops the roots off, is that going to fall over on, surely if that's going to fall over on his property, you're less likely to do that?
I won't predict where it will fall. Sorry.
Councillor Olsen.
2 questions. Have the neighbours been consulted on this matter, like the neighbouring properties?
Through the chair, no, the neighbours haven't, but as part of the resource consent, they probably will be.
Okay. And my second question is, the cost to fell this tree and remove it falls on us, the council?
We haven't had a full conversation about that, but if that is council's intent that this be a cost share, that would be your right to do that.
Thank you.
Councillor Kinsey.
I was just going to ask a similar question to Councillor Olsen. In the resource consent process, would there be an opportunity for the public to express their sentiment towards the tree? Because I know that some of these big Norfolk pines are heralded and revered, like the one in Whangarei I know is very valuable to the community. And I think it would be ideal if there was the opportunity for the public to be able to express that at some point in the process.
Through the chair, how far and wide public consultation will happen will be for the processing planner, but I can pass on your interest about whether the wider community should be consulted about the tree. The tree would have been considered through the public and notable tree chapter of the district plan, so in general, large trees were part of that conversation. So there could be, don't think, it's not a notable tree, so it wasn't listed by the public as something of high importance.
Thank you. Councillor William.
Thank you, Richard. As chairman of the infrastructure, I've got to back my staff on this one. That tree is now causing property damage, has the potential to cause more. And since our recent unwanted visitor, I've travelled out the district extensively. And just yesterday afternoon, I took a look at a tree that is borderline possibly owned by the council, and it has fallen over and gone through a man's workshop and destroyed his livelihood. So we don't really want this tree being the cause of the house being destroyed. There's no guarantee that it will blow down, but there's no guarantee that it won't. And if the staff have recommended that it be removed, they have my 100% backing. Thank you.
Just before I come back to you, Councillor Cotter, so with this particular tree, when it gets, if it gets felled, if resources get through and it gets felled, will Hubwood have an opportunity to be able to reuse the wood?
We can reach out to Hubwood to see if they want the wood. We would tend to chop it up on site, leave it for the community to take.
I was just curious because of the size of the tree, whether it could be used for water carving or things like that.
Sorry, I can't comment on whether it's suitable timber. It's not a native that would naturally be used.
Thank
you. Thank you. Just looking at the tree now on the map here, it's on the reserve. There's no kind of footpath. It's not impacting on public's kind of ability to continue to use that reserve, is it? Like it's not affecting any pathways or anything. And the other thing I noted in the report was the tree came down, is there a replacement of some sort that was going?
Yes, we will be planting, I think our agreement is about 4 to 1, but in this case we're probably going to plant a lot of native trees on the right-hand side of the boundary there, so bring our native bush out into the park a little bit and do quite a big replanting in there, because it will take quite some time to replace that large tree in terms of the carbon sink.
So the impact is really just on the impact is just on that one neighbour.
The property damages to that one neighbour, yes. The trees, partway through the field.
Councillor Cotter has one more question.
In regards to the property that is being damaged, is it the house that's being damaged? Is it just footpaths that are being damaged? Is it just the fence that's being damaged? Because there are mitigations that we ourselves, as council, have built boardwalks over to deal with these situations. Are there ways to mitigate this, or is it actually getting into the domicile of the?
Sue, did you understand that question?
Yes, I certainly did understand the question. Sorry, I don't have Paul Malan here who would tell me immediately. I would have to find out about that. I know in the first instance it's the pathway, but the pathway is only this, this wide, it's a paver, and then it is the house. So if there's a tree root under the paver, I expect it's under the house, because it's not going to just stop. So
This text is quite.
Yes, it's quite narrow. It's fence, pavers, house.
Thank you.
Councillor Kenny?
I support the recommendation. I just wonder, and along with my friend Councillor Golightly, the effects that this will have on possible, and I think you'll know the trees I'm talking about, 3 Mile Bush, Tate Street. I think we've got consent to pull that out. But the trees like on 3 Mile Bush, how will this decision affect trees like that?
Well, this is on a scenic reserve. For that reason, council itself has to make a decision. Those other trees are within the legal road. I understand that's what you're referring to. And we'll just be guided by our policy. And if a tree is really causing significant damage, at first we try and fix the infrastructure around it. But if by doing any work to eliminate some of the damage caused by the roots. If that means that we're making the tree unstable, we'd have to make a decision about each tree. But generally, we've got more width in the road to trim tree roots back when they get to private property without destabilising the tree. But it is a tree by tree case, and I think we've only ever brought one other tree issue to council for permission to remove, and that was Brentwood. So we don't do this often.
And I want to thank you for the Tate Street and the Brentwood Ave, the consents for them. I know that'll be a good job done when it's done.
Councillor Kinsey, a question?
I actually think Councillor Connick makes a good point. It would have been helpful to understand what extent of damage is proposed. If there's a narrow path, that looks like a concrete path from the small image we've got in our agenda here. It doesn't give any indication as to what construction type the building consists of. If it was a suspended timber floor, one would think that roots could quite easily migrate their way under there without causing substantial damage, as opposed to a concrete floor slab where you would imagine that would cause damage. So that's an omission from this report that I think would have been relevant.
Councillor Gilbert.
You're just concerned where this is going to take us, and the parallels with other situations. We've got our coastal streams, we've got a situation up at Rustav that have got clients up there that own properties there, and the banks are falling apart. We've got our whole coast, and we're trying to do remedial stuff, and the common answer is, well, it's not damaging our land, the council's land, so it's not going to do anything. And then we've got to go through this process. I don't see how this tree is actually damaging our land, and it's been there for such a long time. Someone's built a house, and they didn't consider that. Where does it open up? We're having this in terms of Auckland, people wanting insurance on houses. Well, it's just the whole can of worms that it does open, but it just doesn't seem to be a consistency in the approach that we do have, because we say on one hand, this one isn't damaging our land, but we're going to pull down a tree. We've got banks and that are being affected by putting a bridge in, and we won't fix some things. So I'm not in favour of the removal.
That's good. Councillor Olsen, you've got another question?
Yes, I do. So can you tell me, because in here it says that it's the damage is lifting pavers and footpaths along the boundary fence line. Is that footpaths on public land?
No.
No, it's on the private property. And the stormwater, damage to stormwater piping that runs down the back side of the property, again, that's on the private property, yes. Not on council. Thank you.
Councillor Hobbs?
We should just finish this debate off. I think the best way to look at that is put yourself in the landowner's position. Think if you own that property and these roots are coming through, lifting up and causing hazards in your own property. They've gone through the correct process, and as our Parks Manager Sue has mentioned, it's extremely hard to go through this process. So these are really big anomalies, and we've got to consider the rights of the landowner. Okay? So this is a classic case of the wrong tree in the wrong space, and just going back to 2 meetings ago, I think our manager was saying that we probably inherit over 1,000 trees a year. You made a quote in here, we all have new subdivisions, and so there's a saying in dairy farm, when you've got livestock, you've got dead stock, and with trees, you've got a lot of trees parted to replace the ones that go past. So in this case, it's not a native tree, it's a Norfolk pine tree, and I support the motion.
Councillors, no other questions or no? Okay. I'll just round it up and just to remind councillors, this particular motion is referring to basically the person's going to be clipping the roots, which will then make the tree unstable. So it's not about the fact that it's unstable at the present moment. It's once the roots are cut and actually cut off, the tree will become everyone's assessment is that the tree will become unstable. If the roots are of the size that they have indicated here, that is totally understandable. Councillor, let's just all those in favour, please. Any opposed? Do you wish your vote to be recorded? No? Yes? Okay, Paul's asking for his vote. Councillor Jacobs is asking for his vote to be recorded, yes.
And Councillor Connor.
No, you didn't want him to record. Okay, so that's, it's in favour, so it's carried. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you, so. Councillors, we move on to item 6.5, temporary road closure Anzac Day. Councillor Peters, you would like to move this?
This is
And a seconder will be Councillor Reid.
This is a lovely thing to be proposing.
And you're going to read this out, aren't you?
I will. That the Whangarei District Council approves the proposal to temporarily close the following roads to ordinary traffic for the Anzac commemorations on the following dates in accordance with the Transport Vehicular Traffic Road Closure Regulations 1965. Tuesday, 25th of April 2023. Hannah Street, from Hannah Street, Carruth Street intersection to Hannah Street, Rayburn Street intersection. Walton Street, from the Pack and Save car park to the Walton Street, Cameron Street intersection. Walton Street, Robert Street intersection, corner of the old ASB Bank and the old Army Hall place. And Robert Street, John Street and Robert Street, James Street intersection. It's long. Rathbone Street, Robert Street intersection on both sides of the road, Lorry Hall Lane and Lorry Hall Park area from the Rathbone Street intersection, period of closure 4:45 a.m, for all of us getting up early, to 8:45 a.m. Approves the proposal to temporarily close the side roads off the roads to be closed for up to 100 metres from the intersection for safety purposes, delegates the chair of the Infrastructure Committee and General Manager Infrastructure the power to give public notice of these proposed temporary closures, to consider any objections and to either approve, cancel or amend any or all of the temporary road closures if applicable.
Well done, thank you, Councillor Peters. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh, just that it is wonderful that we still commemorate our soldiers so many years later with such gusto, and many people will turn up for that day.
Thank you, Councillor Peters. Any other comments or questions? No? Right here. Do you want to say this? Councillor Cooper, just to let you know that Waipu is in hand at this present moment.
Perfect. Very, had a phone call just then.
Okay, so councillors, as you all know, this has been moved. Councillor Peters, do you want your right to reply? No, right. All in favour to have the Anzac parade? Whangarei? Any opposed? Carried. Excellent. Thank you very much, councillors. I know the RSA are very much thankful for this event, and I tell you now, in all the years I've been a part of it, it is a wonderful, wonderful event. And it is absolutely amazing to see the amount of people that turn up on that day. And I know White is in the same boat.
I'd like to move the next motion.
There was a bit of a fight there. I had a recruit. Okay, so Councillor Cooper, are you going to move 6.6, and Councillor McKenzie will second that?
With him being on it, is that appropriate? No. I'll second it. I'll happily second it, but because he's within the promotion.
That is a fair comment, Councillor Connaught. You can speak to it, yes.
I'd like to. I'll second it. Though.
Councillor Connaught will second the motion. Councillor Cooper, would you like to read the motion?
You can see why I'd like to move the motion, Mr. Chairman, so that we can get some go forward on it. The motion is that the council note the appointment of Councillors Simon Reid, Scott McKenzie, Carol Peters as members of the Northern Regional Council's Whangarei Public Transport Working Party. We have a second. Would you like to speak to it, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
I think it's a great thing. I think in order to get all team members working in the same direction, they should take a long ride in a very small bus and see if they can't come up with a good strategy while they're away. So thank you. That's all. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
No problem. Councillor McKenzie, did you want to?
Yes, thank you. It's an honour to have been recommended to be one of the appointees to this committee. It's an important one. There are plans afoot to introduce a priority bus lane over the next few years, which will help to reduce congestion and bring us in line with other New Zealand cities which are advancing their public transport systems. It will allow for the elderly who do not have the ability to drive any longer to have a feasible option for getting around town. And alongside that, there's the plan to increase and double the frequency of buses in the district to make it a viable option for people, so that you don't have to wait, half an hour for a bus to come along. And really like to make the point that our urban space is incredibly valuable, and the way that we choose to use that is very, very important. Just bring along a little example here of the same amount of people in a bus and in a series of cars. So when you have more people in buses, it actually frees up space for people who choose to drive their cars to do so and get around that method of transport. So very excited to be on this committee. Looking forward to working with Councillor Reid and Councillor Peters and the members from the NRC, and looking forward to progressing this co-pilot.
Councillor Peters, I believe you want to say something.
I am also similarly excited about being on this committee. When I returned from overseas in 1992, I was shocked to find that my hometown did not have any buses. And so when my husband came up here in 1995, I said to him, your first job is to coordinate a committee and get some buses. And so he worked very hard over 3 years getting experts up here and a very vocal group of elderly people, most of whom he had to pick up because there wasn't any buses, who lobbied the council at the time. And in fact, Craig Brown actually got in on one as partly on this issue, because he agreed with all the elderly people, very hard to disagree with them actually, that we should have buses. And one of the things that he said when he got in and we started the buses on the first day when we were doing is, use it or lose it. And we do need to keep using them in order not to lose it. And hopefully during our term, we will make them more frequent. And I mean, I know one of the aims is frequent and free, and maybe we could have more users of it, but we'll do what we can to improve the bus service. And so that's a great honour to be working on it from right back. How long ago is that? That's a while. It's 30 years, nearly 30 years ago. Cool.
I just want to say I fully support the nominations onto this committee, especially with Councillor Reid's extensive experience in larger vehicles and his very frequent telling us about it. And also the two that I have who have already spoken of their excitement on this. It's one thing that I've been wanting us to work a lot closer with Northern Regional Council on, and this is one space of many, but it's great to have a working party looking to develop this space. We keep on hearing from the public that there needs to be improved bus services, as we've already heard. We need areas that expanded into these developments that are growing as we speak. We've got areas up in Tikipunga which are going to need a lot more, and they're already pulling out for it. So fully support the appointments.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Hobbs?
Yeah, just to balance the argument up a bit, it sounds like an election for the green party. But anyway, in saying that, I love the enthusiasm of the members, so it's just really exciting. We can make something done, because it's just a real challenge, I tell you, working with other parties. The biggest thing is the buses, you know, you've got to realise that there's no such thing as a free bus. We're paying it in our taxes, you know. That is the trouble with the buses and irregularity. Councillor Mackenzie has hit the nail on the head. We're better to have fewer routes, but actually really make it worthwhile and have a regular clientele using the buses. Because in the infrequency of buses in Whangarei is absolutely apparent. That's why people don't use them. Because, you know, buses meant to be there at 5 o'clock, it turns up some days, and some days it doesn't turn up at all. So, good luck.
Thank you.
Councillor Penny.
Man, it's annoying when you steal my thunder, Councillor. So again, after travelling in today, in my vehicle, 12 kilometres, it was 10 minutes quicker on my bike yesterday. So this is the really important work that needs to be done. But it's not just about putting on more buses, extra buses in the bus lane. There's a whole heap of stuff that needs to go with that. And so the challenge is really on for this committee. I'd really like to see some progress. I don't think we've seen any progress in my term in council, and that I would love to take a bus in, but it's got to be regular and it's got to be organised and be a lot quicker than what it currently is. And I just note that Councillor Mackenzie, when he took over the climate change portfolio thing, since we had a weather bomb and a cyclone, so I hope a similar situation doesn't happen with the buses. So.
Councillor Holmes.
Look, I support this wholeheartedly. Can I just put a plea in for rural buses as well? Because certainly the rural community that I represent, one bus a week doesn't really a lot of use. So wholly support it, but can we please raise our eyes, not purely urban. There are rural communities out there that would use public transport if it was provided as regular and it was reliable.
Councillor Reid first.
Thank you, Your Worship. And talk about stealing thunder, Councillor Ben. Very happy to be asked to be a part of this. It's a massive body of work. And should we manage to get buses tall enough with lazy boys, we'll put one on the Waipu run just for Councillor Cooper. Thank you.
Anyway, on that topic, Councillor Olsen.
Just a question. So with this proposal for the, will you be looking at, you know how on the North Shore they have the parking facilities for the outlying districts? Is that something that you are going to consider?
So we'll go through the staff on the
So, through the chair, I don't know the ins and outs of all the specifics that this working group is looking into. I've just sort of been tasked with appointing to it, so it would be a question for the working group itself, I would say.
Thank you.
I'm sure those considerations will be put into account. Councillor, since there's no other comments or discussion about that, it has been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Item 6.7. Now I'm going to move in a different motion for 6.7. It's going to be distributed at this present moment. And it's 6.7, TK Area Strategic Partnership Committee appointment of members. And the proposed recommendation is, as states, that Council 1 appoints the following hapu members to TK Area Strategic Partnership Committee. And that is Deloraine Armstrong, Ben Bristow, Sandra Hawken, Simon Mitchell, Tane Tirangi, Nikki Wakefield, and Koiperi William. 2, requests Te Hunga select and recommend one further member for appointment by Council. 3, notes that Te Karerea Strategic Partnership Committee terms of reference will be updated with the hapu members appointed at today's meeting. And 4, that Council requests staff development staff develop a selection, appointment and remuneration policy for external appointees on council committees and subcommittees. Councillor Hoss will second that. Thank you, councillors. Now, the reason I've asked for this to be moved is because over the last couple of months, when names first got acknowledged to me, I asked some questions and I found out that one of the appointments was actually a staff member. While the staff member is in a low position in the council, well, it's still an important position, I felt there was a complete conflict, and it was in a situation where it was unfair to put a staff member in that position. I feel, even though the Local Government Act does highlight about staff appointments to committees, it makes it very, very hard when you have a staff member who then is getting paid by one organisation and then get paid by Te Kāre to be there as well. So it becomes a management issue which can become quite complex and quite difficult to manage. I think personally it's unfair to ask a staff member to go without pay. I think it's personally unfair for a staff member to be put into this type of situation. So that is the reason why I've asked for it to be moved this way, and that is the reason why I've also asked for there to be an external policy to be created to make this so that it doesn't happen again. This is one of those things where it would have been nice if we had the policy beforehand to make it very, very clear, because at the present moment our council does not have a policy on this, whereas other councils do. So this is really just being common practice, good governance, and making sure that there is no issues that can be created from having a staff member from the outside world, because I am quite conscious that I want everyone in the team to be able to work together. Not saying that they couldn't work on the team, it's just that the perception from the public will look wrong, having a council staff member in two positions like that. Hence the reason I moved forward. Councillor Peters.
I'd like to propose an amendment of the original motion. To the original motion.
Back to the original motion.
Back to the original motion.
Okay, without the policy?
I'd also like to include policy 4. Oh no, just a minute. Where's the policy? Yeah, number 4. You had number 4 of your policy,
Which
recommendation.
Carolyn tells me which comes number 3.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a second for that?
Second.
Councillor Locker. Councillor Peters, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Just briefly, this person has been appointed by Ngāpuhi at this stage, and I wish to honour them.
Councillor Gillard.
Thank you, Worship. Just a couple of questions. Has Sean expressed any concern with this position at all, that he's going to find that it's a conflict himself?
Aaron, I believe you've probably just come past that. Would you like to come to
I've heard the chief suggesting notifying what potential conflicts come across his sites as he takes on this position. We ran some scenarios, some potential scenarios, and we're still comfortable to stay in that position.
And one other question. Knowing the local government...
Could you both speak up, please?
Oh, sorry. Knowing the local government of by heart, obviously, is there anything in there that is in conflict with this?
With the amendment?
With the original motion?
With the motion I put through?
Yes.
No, there was nothing in conflict with my motion that I put through.
So there's nothing in the Local Government Act that says that this is a conflict? Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Peters, sorry, Councillor just to clarify, were you referring to my original motion, which was without Sean in there, or was it with? Or are you referring to the motion that Councillor Peters has put up?
No, I think it was your one, Your Worship, just sort of basically was with the initial, sorry, yes, Councillor Peters, I'm getting confused. The initial recommendation, I just wondered if there was anything in the Local Government Act that was vaguely, not supportive of this sort of thing with the staff member,
So, Aaron, do you want to?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, through the Chair. Clause 31, Schedule 7 of the Act does state that anyone working for as a staff member isn't allowed to represent on a subcommittee or committee that is representing their staff's course. However, in this case, our employee is representing the hapu and not his role as a staff member.
Sorry, just to clarify that, Aaron, it's actually just a committee, not a subcommittee?
Oh, correct, sorry, yes, that's correct. Committee.
Councillor McKenzie.
Without knowing the ins and outs of the situation, it seems that if Sean has gone through a process that's been agreed to, and there isn't currently a policy in place, that would seem highly unethical for us to then turn around and renege on that arrangement. So I won't be supportive of that. I'll be supportive of Councillor Peters' amendment.
Councillor Peters.
Yeah, well, I understand Your Worship's concerns with this, and I think that there are some valid concerns in there. The process, we've gone through a process, we've followed the process. Whangarei is such a tight-knit, small community that there are overlaps wherever we go. And I know some of the committees I've been on, I have ties with a whole heap of people in there. And I think that while there is the potential appearance of conflict, I don't think that this is necessarily the case, and I will be supporting Councillor Peters' motion.
Councillor Holmes.
So I'd like to speak in support of Councillor Peters' amendment as well, for the reasons that have previously been identified. I think if there had been a policy in place that specifically precluded staff from being on committees, then I think it would be much easier. However, this gives the impression of us trying to make a policy on the hoof, which I'm not in favour of. I'd also just like to reflect on what Councillor Peters said about the process that HUPA have been through. I have no reason to believe that that process was not thorough and was entirely in accordance with the processes that had been outlined and agreed, and to now renege on that, I think, shows this council in a very poor light. I see no reason why the member of staff should have any problem in understanding potential conflict of interest and be able to deal with that just like any other member of staff would be able to do so. So I strongly support Councillor Peters' amendment.
Councillor?
Yeah, just on second the sentiments of our councillors. And I'm just reading through the risks. Sorry. And it says that the suitable nominees have been considered by staff for conflict of interest, any potential conflict of interest, potential staff members, contractors, councillors, going onto that committee. So from what I can see, internally our staff have done their due diligence in making sure he'd be okay to fulfil that role. So yeah, hence why I second Councillor Peters.
Councillor Nicole? Oh, Councillor Olsen, sorry, I wasn't too sure. It's Councillor Olsen.
Yes, just from the financial point of view, I'm supportive of this. The financial side of things, it says that the remuneration is going to be set at $280 per meeting for HUPU members. Has that been budgeted for, and if so, from what budget will that come from?
Through the chair, yes, it has been budgeted for for all of our committees. We pay the same amount It's budgeted for and set in stone in our budget in each year, to go through each year.
Yes, Tom.
Yeah, I'm supportive of Councillor Peters' amendment. I would hope that, well, considering staff have said that they've gone through a process and situations where they've kind of had an idea of what could come up, I would hope that if there were any decisions or whatnot that would affect their role, that they would stand aside from that decision if that was to come up, for whichever reason. I don't see it to be too much of an issue. There are many complexities within this space as well, and also I respect the Hapu deciding and seeing how much quality we even had with Māori wards and how many people were running, and a couple of people in here have actually that is spectacular that we can also be working alongside them. I look forward to it, and so I guess I support Councillor Peters' commitment.
You've already spoken.
I was just going to clarify, so for the record, the addition of 4, which becomes 3.
Yeah.
Shall I read it out?
Sorry, Carolyn has already noted that.
Yeah.
Because you agreed to that.
So I do agree with that. Yeah.
Councillor Harden.
Thank you, and just in support of Councillor Peters' motion, and I guess the biggest thing for Hapu is succession. And this guy is the youngest person that we've ever had come through. And he's already been hugely supported from his Hapu, his kaumata queer. And we need a tuakana taina type relationship with him to look after his well-being around being an employee, and then also sitting in a Hapu space. And that's what I would like to encourage. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Councillor. Any other comments? Aaron, you want to make a comment? It's highly unlikely this.
I'd just like to add context around what the mitigation factors are that we've put in place to ensure that his conflict is managed. So we are putting together a conflict management plan. We've discussed with our employee as I mentioned, some of the potential scenarios that he could come across. We've mentioned around departing himself. If there's anything that does come into direct conflict, the support mechanisms that we've put in place. We have our Māori Outcomes Manager overseeing his work both within his work stream in the operational phase that he works in IT, and also his role here in the committee. So we believe that we've put things in place to be able to manage any potential conflict.
Any other comments, Councillor?
I have reservations. We're making a decision here that could bring us to public backlash. Number one, we haven't got a proper policy in place for dual citizenship, i.e. being a staff member and being on this committee. And I will just remind everyone for the record that I was one of the councillors that was appointed to help set up this particular strategic committee, and it's something pretty close to my heart, and I won't be probably voting for or against. I will most likely abstain today, simply because everything is not set in concrete as yet. There's too much airy-fairy, no policy. We haven't got direction from staff as yet, so I shall be abstaining. Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think, Your Worship, I think I need to make a comment on this, and as probably myself and you have probably been the longest serving councillors on this council, and as our Mayor has rightly pointed out, his role is the leadership of council, and with this doubt, you've got to come out and express that doubt as well. So First of all, I think that is a pretty brave move, but I think it should be respected. And the reason I backed it up is I've been in this scenario before, and it has the potential to lead to conflict. And we've pointed it out, we've discussed it, and I think it basically comes down to a conscience vote. And I think we'll have to live with how the vote goes.
So, councillors, no one else wants to talk about it? No? Amendments? So we'll put the amendments. All those in favour?
I'll call for division.
Okay, we call for a division. All those in favour of the amendment, please raise your right hand.
Which is?
The amendment is Councillor Peters' motion, which was the original motion, with the addition of that council requests staff develop a selection, appointment and remuneration, never say that word, policy for external appointments from council committees and subcommittees. So please raise your right hand.
Councillors Mackenzie, Benny, Connor, Peters, Golightly, Cooper, Harding, Holmes and Rooker.
Those against?
Councillors Hulse and His Worship the Mayor.
Those abstaining?
Councillors Olsen, Jovich and Reid.
The amendment is carried. It now becomes a substantial motion. And now we vote on the substantial motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councillor Reid, do you wish yours to be recorded against? It has been passed. Thank you, Aaron, for the discussion and also the allowing to talk about this in an open, transparent way. Councillors, we move on to item 6.8, which is submission of a review of future for local government, and I believe, Aaron, you're going to go back into that spot again. It's on page 84 or page 87 in the electronic version. Do I have a mover for this motion?
Oh no, you're not the reader.
Councillor Holmes will move it, and Councillor Connor will second it. Councillor Holmes, would you like to please read that?
I'm happy to move it. So that council, 1, approve the submission prepared on behalf of Whangarei District Council to a review panel into the future of local government. 2, delegate to the Chief Executive the authority to approve minor amendments to the submission if necessary.
It has been moved in second. Would you like to speak to it?
I think it's self-explanatory, and I won't try and steal Aaron's thunder. I think he can speak far more eloquently about this than I will. So,
are you asking for Aaron to make some comments?
I am.
Within 2 weeks. Through the chair, I think we've walloped this beast enough. We've gone through it with two briefings. Everybody should be familiar with it. There was some fine tuning of 9 points that we've done in this last draft, and I would expect that everybody's read it and would be reasonably comfortable with it.
Councillor Connor, first.
Thank you. Yes, very supportive of actually putting a submission into this. Considering the future of local government hangs in the balance of who knows what it could be. If we do not have our say, we remove our voice from the picture. This is what we keep on trying to encourage to our residents as well when we have submissions on other things too. And if we did not do it, I think it would be slap in the face to our own people. Whilst not all of them we may not all agree with, we will have participated within this space, and it is politics. It is one of those things that we have supported a lot, we have supported some, and we've kind of been undecisive on some others. We need a bit more exploring, I think, is probably the main case. But it's good that we are using our voice to actually try to make some change too.
Councillor Kinsey.
Just a comment, I'd like to think at the useful age of 39 that my memory was certainly correctly, but I recall the discussion sort of finishing on an agreement that lowering the voting age to 16 would be acceptable given the inclusion of the requirement for civics education. I'm not sure if everyone's in agreement with that, but that's where I think we got to. So I just wanted to note that.
Councillor McKenzie, I'm well aware of that conversation, and it was actually mixed on the age side of things, but everyone was in agreement with the civic responsibility of being amongst the schools. That was very determined on that one, and I believe that Aaron did include that part of his submission as well. Thank you for highlighting that, Councillor McKenzie. Councillor Peters.
I want to thank Aaron and Simon for an amazing piece of work, and very important and done at speed, because this is basically the future of how we're going to relate to our citizens and to central government and look at our tasks. So it's really important bit of work, and really want to endorse you both for your work.
Even over a storm. Absolutely, Councillor. Councillor Hoss.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd just like to make a few comments on this. It's actually, I have to fully support our submission. I thought our submission is excellent, so thanks very much to the staff for putting it together. So mine is a bit wider, because when the government asks you to write a submission on this, you've got to look at the government and say, what are they actually trying to do here? And it's quite noticeable that we've been excluded from a couple of major features of this. During the process of putting this together, Kieran McAnulty is now the Minister of Local Government, went around and visited most of the councils in the country, but I've noticed he didn't come up here. Now, why is it that we can't get people coming up here and when they're flitting all around the country, trying to get a headline everywhere he goes, now he's got to point it to local government? He needed to face us as well. So, you know, Northland gets left out once again. And so, and the other one, if you go back to Councillor McKenzie's comment about lowering the voting age to 16, isn't it ironic now that we've actually got to spend $74 million to have truancy officers to get these kids to go to school? Really great indictment of what's happening at school, and
point of order.
A lot of suggestions. I'm speaking, thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Hoss. Councillor, the point of order is?
The blanket statement.
The
blanket statement of youth being not suitable, but also being truants. There is different people. There are some that are, and there are many that aren't. And it's one of those things.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cobb. I think Councillor Hoss, you'll modify your statement on that one.
I'll modify my statement because they're all youth. They're all between the ages 13 and 18, so they're actually classed as youth. So what I'm pertaining to is, why do we have to now have an education process to go to school to introduce a civic thing promoted by the government to get them to understand it? You know, we've got to listen. What I'm saying is, they ask for a submission, but they don't look over here at the main indicators of what's going to happen in policy. So I'm just pointing it out, but it'd be very nice for the Minister of Local Government to make contact with us sometime. Thank you.
The point's taken. Councillor Holmes.
Can I have the right to reply?
When it comes time, I was going to make sure. I just want to make sure the other councillors that actually had a say and actually come. Councillor Harding, did you want to say?
I just wanted to support our submission, and I hope that we were able to share it with other councillors so that they can embrace kind of the core focus of what we are wanting to do and make changes.
That's actually a very good question. Aaron, did you manage to get time to share it with the other councils in the north?
Through the chair, I made it clear that it was available if they so wanted to access it. I haven't to date. They may have whilst I was on leave, but as far as I'm aware, they haven't to date reached out.
That is actually a really important thing to highlight, Aaron, and I do appreciate you making the time to actually available for them to actually access it, because they did actually make very much comment that they wanted to access it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
It's just come through Mr. Chief,
They have. Excellent. Well done. Good to have a team on the side here reminding you,
When do you think about council when you're on leave?
So no more comments? No? Over to you, Councillor Holmes, for your right.
Sorry, I jumped the gun there. My apologies, Your Lordship. So, I just want to put on record the great piece of work that Aaron has done here. The material he had to work with that came out of central government was complex and difficult to understand, and I think in the short time available over Christmas with a cyclone, that was a great piece of work. So good job, thanks Anne.
Yeah, absolutely, well done. Councillors, it has been moved and seconded, the right reply has been had. All those in favour? Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Well done. Thank you, Aaron. Now, councillors, we're going to move into confidential. I'm also going to give you 5 to 10 minutes just to stretch your legs and also allow the camera guys to finish off. And we'll be taking item 1.3 to 1.2 to allow the parties outside to be part of this meeting. Okay, so I will move confidential. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Cooper in seconds. All those in favour? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Oh.